Ballad of the Nameless Traveler by Tomek Piorkowski, a fantasy epic in rhyme. Text copyright. Tomek Piorkowski, 2012. Part 2. Once upon a time in a tropical clime. Two nations faced each other to begin a war, though none really knew what the invasion was for. The Raja of Trivandrum, 'twas said, was under a sway, the sway of his mistress, who thus had her way. She corrupted the good Raja until came a day when she convinced him to invade the land of Alapay. 1,000 years of peace was now broken, and the mad demons of war had awoken. By Raja Sanvajay's order beat steady the war drum. Into fields of Alapay marched the hosts of Trivandrum. "Gold is what we want," whispered his mistress Shirinar, "and priceless silks and diamonds that can glitter like a star." Roused gently, with sweet words Shirinar had spoken, greed that had never been was in Sanvajay awoken. Out of character he became a warrior bold, leading his army, thirsting for gold. "Send me my herald," cried fiercely the Raja Sanvajay, "that a message I may send to the lord of Alapay." The herald came and then was sent. To the Raja of Alapay he went. The lord of Alapay was Raja Krishnud Dash, a noble and good king, but volatile of mood. Downhearted he was at the prospect of war, of soldiers ravaging the land he did adore. He thought of his people who might be killed, all because one man an invasion had willed. Sick was he in his heart, he wished for no more than the prospect of peace and the end of this war. In the war camp, alone sat Raja Krishnud, turning over these thoughts on which he did brood. Then his son Prince Ashok entered the tent. He said, "Trivandrum a herald has sent. Will you hear what he has to say, or should I send him away?" "Let him come in," said Raja Krishnud, "though we now war, there's no need to be rude." Holding his flag of white, the herald came in. Prince Ashok on his face wore a malicious grin, then said, "I come in the name of Raja Sanvajay. Hear, O mighty Krishnud, of what he has to say. Whether there is peace or war, it's now in your hands. I feel mercy for you and compassion for your lands. Although we are prepared to fight, through every blood-filled day and night, I am willing to withdraw and go away, if you are willing a great sum to pay." Great happiness filled Raja Krishnud's heart, for he was loath to play the warrior's part. He cried, "What joy it is to hear of sweet peace! I'd pay anything for this war to cease." But Prince Ashok in indignation exclaimed, "Why should we pay the fine, as if we're to be blamed? As if we did something wrong, in this your war, as if we did the heinous deed that all should abhor. Get out of here and tell your leader, knave, that we spit on his lunatic rave." "Silence, boy," cried Krishnud. "How dare you be so rude? How dare you interfere with matters of state? Get out of this tent and outside you wait." Wrath was on the moody Raja's face. The prince bowed to him and left the place. The Raja stood up, with joy in his eye. So happy he was, he almost began to cry. "Forgive my impetuous son, and ignore his speech. Who can refuse such a sweet accord to reach? He is hot-headed, eager for war flags to unfurl, not knowing that peace is the most precious of pearl. Go back to your master and tell him I agree. What is gold, if from bloodshed we can be free? He can have what he wants in a trice, for surely peace is worth any price." So the men of the army of Trivandrum furled the war flag and put aside the war drum, and marched their way home, laden with spoil, bought with threats, with hardly any toil. Raja Sanvajay laughed, throwing coins in the air. The palace barely had space to keep the treasure there. The treasury was overfull, open were its doors, so that gold and jewels littered the palace floors. Sanvajay had 3 children, and they were dismayed to see that their father by Shirinar was so easily played. Prince Arand, Princess Aran, Prince Aranit, to discuss their fears, they gathered to meet. Prince Arand was the eldest and heir to Trivandrum's throne. "Once I was glad that our father was no longer alone," said Prince Arand. "But that witch, Shirinar, is making him a puppet. She's gone too far. In this needless invasion of Alapay we risked all. If we'd been defeated, Trivandrum would have had to fall." Yet by the moody Raja Krishnud's caprice, We by luck instead managed his nation to fleece. Prince Aranit then wished to speak. Of rot does our palace home reek. Our father plays with Shirinar while our country decays. Taxes ever go higher, it's the peasant who then pays. The people of our nation become poorer every day, as our nation falls further under Shirinar's sway. Now I have news that rebellion stalks the land. Lord Falcon of the Border has shown his hand. Aided by that fierce old wizard Ezadane, he has rebelled against our father's reign, all the Raja's tax collectors throwing out. To protect his people, thus begins the bout. Yet, despite this flagrant disobedience, our father displays only indolence. He cares not if our nation comes to harm. All he cares for is Shirinar's charm. The border's nothing, the danger's here, said Princess Aran. Who knows what evil rituals that witch works in her den? My own magic arts are unable her work to discover. Her den is locked to me, I can't her rituals uncover. Her strange apprentice, who clothes himself all in red, only comes out at night, as if he were an undead. Why do they order so much pig's blood from the butchery? Are evil plans made? What secrets are in their sorcery? By the ground on which I stand, I fear for our nation, said Prince Arand. Meanwhile the Rajah, his war brought to an abrupt end, called for Shirinar and his servants away he did send. Shirinar came, and he pulled her gently into his arms. He was so glad to be alone, alone with her charms. He pulled her softly onto his bed, and kissed her lips of crimson red, gently put his hand upon her head, and whisperingly to her said, My love, my love, my love, ask of this sire, ask what you will, ask anything you desire. She only laughed and pulled herself away, and poured out some wine laid out on a tray. But the wine to slake the Rajah's thirst was with Shirinar's black magic cursed. With each hidden potion and hidden spell, the Rajah more under her power fell. For a long time Shirinar had done this trick. His love for her was mostly due to her magic. So it was that the beautiful but cunning Shirinar mixed her black magic potion within the Rajah's wine jar. 7 drops of her aphrodisiac she gave, enough to make a ruler her willing slave. The tainted chalice she put to her Rajah's lip, and the unknowing Rajah drank every tainted sip. She then whispered, Of this humble slave, my noble sire, you ask her of what it is that she may desire. I will tell you that there in the land of Alapay, Krishnud has hidden all of his treasures away. What we received in our war was but a trifle, a little morsel in order a dragon to stifle. The rest remains in the greedy hands of Krishnud Dash. He dared to keep his gold, he dared to be so rude. Rajah of Trivandrum, show him who is master here. March into Alapay, and make him tremble with fear. Take what is rightfully yours, take all his gold. Take it for me, my warrior so bold. And when the land of Alapay beneath you does fold, bedeck me in gold, that I be a sight to behold. This shall make my joy fly higher and higher. My lord and master, that is what I desire. Raja Sanvajay exclaimed in surprise. From where does this request of yours arise? What madness is this that dances on your tongue? In what fevered dream was this idea first sung? Only just now I came back from a war. Now I hear you say, not enough. I want more. For 1,000 years conflict did not arise. When I invaded, Krishnud was taken by surprise, and victory was easy to take, although much of my bluster was fake. And if Krishnud had only fought, who knows what fate would have wrought? Now he is surely prepared, with his armies ready. The border they guard, and they stand to repel me. Who'd win another war? To whom would fate victory give? Who would be the one to die falling? Who would stand and live? Shirinar, cease talk of the madness of war. Rather another glass of wine for me pour. Shirinar smiled and poured her lord more of the tainted wine. She watched him drink it, as she next to her lord did recline, her sweet-eyed look hiding her heart's darkness so cold. She waited for the magic wine to take renewed hold. Then she whispered, Darling, the path is clear. Victory is yours, why do you fear? Listen to me. There are many passes to Alapay. At one pass there is but one fortress that guards the way. I believe the people say it's called the Fort of Mandalay. It sits between the river Ganges and thick jungle, inhabited by fearsome beasts such as the grungle, and the trees are so dense the jungle is impassable. It would seem that to take the fort would be impossible, for in front it is wide and huge and strong of wall. The sides are defended by the river and jungle tall. Only if it was abandoned could it then fall, the soft innards of Alapay, then open to maul. Krishnud is so greedy, I believe his soldiers are poor. All that is needed is some trifle to use as a lure. And since now we have all this gold, let us use it to make a fortress sold. Bribe the defenders, let them take their leave, let us march forth in glory, let Krishnud grieve. The wine by now had gone to the Raja's head. His eyes lit up with fury, he jumped and said, "That villain! How dare he trick me so? He shall rue the day he made me his foe. He fooled me, giving only a tiny bit of his wealth. How gullible I was, taken in by this piece of stealth." Consumed with anger or madness as never before, Raja Sanvajay once again felt the yearning for war. An ancient yearning, an ancient sickness of the heart that since time began, sowed the earth with sword and bloody dart, to bear those dread rotting flowers called those who had died, which ripens into fruits called tears that their mothers cried. Raja Sanvajay called all those trusted by him. He called them to council, his eyes violent and grim. The Raja sat on his royal throne most grand. Beside him his lover Shirinar did stand. Before him his ministers and his children three, ready to hear him speak his royal decree. Be aware that Krishnud has stained my honor, and vengeance is for what my heart does clamor. Stir up my armies, stir up each warrior's heart, raise up your shields and polish each sharpened dart. For now, once more, we shall go to war. And then behold how before this army of Trivanrams, the forces of Alapay shall dissolve into crumbs. All those present felt a great shock, but before anyone could take stock, Princess Arran immediately cried, "Curse the day that wisdom and reason died. Ever since that witch has come to your side, you have failed to see how she has lied and lied. Has Shirinar plucked your very eyes from your head, that you're unable to see how our nation has bled? Did she put you up to this ridiculous idea? Has she so managed to whisper poison into your ear? I've had enough. It is time to end that witch." Arran then against Shirinar a spell did pitch. Raising her arms, she summoned a giant, eagle that arose like a phoenix, all fire and regal. It sped across the throne room, towards Shirinar it flew, the eagle's claws grasping for the kill as nearer it drew. "You wretch!" Shirinar shrieked, and she cast a charm, by shouting magic words and twisting her arm. Then arose from the ground a giant magic snake, that struck with its fangs, the eagle's life to take. The bird twisted aside, but it had no luck. Deep into its neck that serpent's fangs struck. The eagle gave out a screeching cry, then it vanished from sight. So it did die. Then the mystic snake forward lunged. Through the air its mighty body plunged. It went for Arran just like a battering ram. The Princess Arran hit the wall with a slam. The snake pinned Arran's body against the wall, its mouth opened wide, fangs ready to fall. "Kill her!" did the wicked Shirinar cry. But just as Arran was about to die, the Raja stood up and ordered, "Hold!" And the moment the commandment was told, Shirinar's magical gestures stopped, and the magical snake, dying, flopped, and vanished into nothingness. With nothing holding up the princess, off the wall, she did fall, and hit the ground with a cry, and there in pain she did lie. "Traitor to my heart," cried the Raja in his wrath. "Who'd have thought that you would walk down this path? How dare my own daughter try to strike the woman I love? From now on you are confined to your room, by gods above. If you so much as stick your littlest toe through your door, you'll find your decapitated head rolling on the floor. Gods, take her away, put her under arrest." The guards did so, obeying the Raja's behest. On that note ended the meeting, the Raja's heart angrily beating. Prince Aranete spoke to his brother as they walked. His voice sounded pensive, as to Arand he talked. What can we do, in order this devious plan to foil? Our sister is arrested. The nation is in turmoil. Let the two of us run away, out of Shirinar's evil sway, till we figure out some plan to save our beloved land, through the wisdom of the mind and valor of the hand. But Prince Arand would not to this agree. He shook his head, and in reply said he, We should obey our father even though we disagree. This is what is referred to as filial piety. We princes are an example to the nation. Should we encourage children to forget their station? Aranit replied, I do not forget society, and the importance of all the rules of propriety. But what is the point of serving our father the king, when he is under the shadow of Shirinar's wing? I refuse. And so I shall go to meet Lord Falcon, and with him and Ezadane and my Falchion, we shall make amends for what Shirinar has done, and by my blood we shall not rest till we have won. Then go! Prince Arand then cried, Run and in the borderlands hide. Our nation is about to burn to a cinder. And so I will neither help you nor hinder, for I cannot see any more who is wrong or right. The world has gone mad. I know not which enemy to fight. And so they parted, and young Aranit rode out that night, while the elder prince polished his sword, ready for the fight. Meanwhile in the court of Alapay, Raja Krishnud had this to say, How joyful it is, when the clamor of war does cease. How wonderful it is to live in blessed times of peace. To which his son Prince Ashok replied like this, If only I, like you, could see nothing amiss, and join you in your pleasant revelries. But there is no more gold in our treasuries, and our state schools and hospitals have had to close. Now there is among our people much of tears and woes. The royal throne no longer plays its filial role, by placing the old and the childless on the dole. As for orphans, we are no longer their help. For we have no gold to shelter the abandoned whelp, and the orphanages go hungry. But if you think my complaints are too sundry, I will pick the one that frightens me most of all, one that most makes me fear our nation will fall. Many fortresses Alapay has, armed by soldiers strong. We bought this peace for them, only now we do them wrong. For months Alapay's warriors have not been paid, not a single coin of salary have they made. Do you expect our borders to be secured for free? Do you realize how open we are to the enemy? Surely by historians we shall as fools be held, as like all other fools who buy peace with Danegeld. His son's speech only raised Krishnud's ire. Krishnud's eyes blazed as if alight with fire. He angrily stood up from his throne and roared out, in a voice that bellowed and echoed about, Since you are so concerned about borders and war, then out with you, boy, and go do for me this chore. Go to those places you speak of, speak to the soldiers there. You shall find out what they really think. Now get out of here. So in an ill mood, the Raja and his son parted. Prince Ashok his tour of inspection thus started, armed with his sword, arrows, and famous bow, and one faithful servant, Ranjit, in tow. He decided that his first stop on the way would be the border fortress of Mandalay, that sat between the river Gangan mightily flowing, and the jungle full of frightful cries that were foreboding. Meanwhile the soldiers at Mandalay were brooding, speaking words full of bile, bitter and unsoothing. To have died in a war would have been better than to live in this peace that hangs like a fetter. Our stomachs are empty, and our families are shaken. They accuse us of having left them to be forsaken. We are so hungry we feel like eating our armor. A pity we did not die in war, fighting with ardor. Better to be dead than through such misery to strive, to feel this hunger in our stomachs eating us alive. Where is our gold, that thing we hold most dear? Gold for which we pretend that we have no fear. Gold, which bends us to our Raja's will, for his sake to die, for his sake to kill. The soldiers were speaking in such a way, grumbling and grumbling about their pay, when a mysterious messenger arrived at their gate. Was it Ashok? No, but someone else, who had this to state. As Trivandrum's envoy, I have come, with gold for you of a great sum. Why suffer in poverty in serving Alapay, when you can share in all the gold I've brought today? And sure enough, behind this diplomat from foreign parts was a legion of servants pushing forward many carts, with jewels and rubies and gems and gold, a glittering sight for all to behold. The captain of the soldiers forward came, and to the envoy did he thus exclaim, "A soldier that is not well used is a soldier that is well abused. Our Rajah does not have the good sense to keep us well, and so we languish in a sort of starving hell. Why should we not listen to you? Tell us what you would have us do." And the envoy orders for them gave. "If you this gold do at all crave, then listen to me, and I shall speak with candor. You must leave here all your weapons and armor, and abandon this fortress within a day. Share out the gold, and go whichever way. Leave your posts, go back to your home, or else wander about and roam. It doesn't matter, as long as this fortress empty stands. Tomorrow this fortress shall be in Trivanrum's hands." And did the warriors say no, these men of Alipay? In fact, they all agreed. They all became traitors that day. The captain divided up the gold, according to rank. And then the treacherous soldiers were happy, to be frank, for at last they again felt their life was worthwhile. They left all their weapons behind in a pile, and marched out in some sort of an order. Left unguarded, then was that stretch of border. The envoy returned back from where he had been sent, to rejoin his Rajah's army, on invasion bent. Raja Sanvajay's warriors were about to march. 10,000 men were to pass beneath his city gate's arch. Just before the army was about to leave, Shirinaw, who always had something up her sleeve, for she was a lady without any compunctions, was giving to her apprentice some parting instructions. "Dundee, I was sent here by Mordecai, witch king of the swamps of the Orenai, for 2 reasons. Firstly, to sow discord and confusion, so that among his foes there could be no collusion. To weaken the nations of Alipay and Trivanrum, that they shall fall when Mordecai's army will marching come. The second reason is to study the lore of the land, in order the secrets of magic to understand. For Mordecai seeks to resurrect the dark god Uzum, and needs the forgotten rituals that open his tomb. These scattered spells lie buried in ancient tomes, hiding in various libraries and homes. So I have been studying demonology, from sources both worthy and dodgy. What I've learnt shows Mordecai to be a fool. He wishes to use the demon god as his tool, but Uzum is no small devil, easy to be controlled. I suspect Mordecai's plans the wrong way will unfold. I would not toy with a being so terrible and grim. But no matter. Of what we found, I have not told him, that a copy of the Book of Ibon we've recovered, and that therein many arcane secrets we've discovered. To hell with the Witch King. I rule the Raja Sanvajay, his army is strong, and I shall soon rule Alipay. Trivanrum's might, together with the Book of Ibon, shall make me strong enough to face Mordecai head-on. Now, my apprentice, you must listen to what I say. I have been drugging Princess Erin's meals every day, and by now she's in stuporous state, lost in a daze which never does abate. While I'm gone, you must continue adding the potion, to continue to dumb her mind and blunt her emotion. When the time is right, we can use her as a sacrifice to summon Demon Ibon. A human life is the price. That shall bring him back from the gloom of the netherworld that forms his tomb. Do this while I accompany Raja Sanvajay, for I must ensure he remains under my sway, that he remains mine, while there in Alipay." This, then, was what Shirinar had to say. Soon thereafter, marching to the beat of the drum, went forth the 10,000-man army of Trivanrum. At the same time, that handsome prince of Alipay, Prince Ashok, was just arriving at Mandalay. Noble he looked, as on his horse he did sit, followed by his faithful servant called Ranjit. The gate of the fortress creaked open wide. Within those gates an eerie silence did bide. Ashok was puzzled, and into the fort he did ride, his eyes full of bewilderment, gazing opened wide. The fortress was empty, there was not even a ghost. No sergeant shouting orders, no sentry at his post. Weapons and arrows were scattered about on the ground. In the stillness the nearby jungle echoing did sound, as if to speak of Ashok's dismay, a far-off grungle to the sky did bay. The prince from his horse dismounted, and feeling utterly downhearted, he stumbled towards the fortress gate. where he felt his strength suddenly abate. As the prince fell upon his knee, he cried, "Glory to the enemy! They have defeated us before the battle has begun. Not a single sword unsheathed, and already they have won. The way through here to the capital is open wide. An army could go frolicking through our countryside. There is no way our defenses can be mended, if this fortress stands here undefended. Ranjit, bring me my sword. Let me take my own life here. Compared with this disaster, death is nothing to fear." "Master!" cried the servant Ranjit. "Surely what you say is not fit. We must do what we can to cope. As long as there is life, there is hope." Ashok replied, "Ranjit, to win against these kinds of odds would require the intervention of the very gods." In his anger, Ashok kicked at the ground. "Master, please tame your fury. I hear a sound. I fear it may be the coming of our foe." They listened, but they heard not some omen of woe. Rather they heard the merry sound of a song, so joyful, as if in the world there were no wrong. But the song served to stir up Prince Ashok's wrath. He took his bow and ran outside onto the path to confront the song which mocked his despair, and to face the singer with a wild-eyed stare. Upon the path winding to Mandalay, Ashok saw a man coming up the way. Atop a noble black mare did the stranger ride. He wore a hat, and a mighty sword was at his side. In the jungle heat, although he wore a cloak of black, he did not sweat at all. At ease he rode along the track. Fiercely red were the flashing eyes of his majestic steed, as if watching for the chance to do some courageous deed. From the horse rider's throat came the happy sound of a song about all the joys that can be found. Prince Ashok put an arrow to his bow, while a look of wrath creased his forehead low, and he cried, "How dare you insult my misery by going along and singing so merrily? I, Prince Ashok of Alapay, order you to silence, or else you shall have to face my arrow's violence." The black-clad stranger seemed not at all to hear. He kept singing as if there was nothing to fear. The horse stopped to look at Ashok with an angry glare, as if asking the Prince of Alapay his threats to dare. But all this served only to raise Ashok's ire. His anger flared within his heart like a fire. He pulled at his bowstring and let loose a dart, with an aim straight and true at the stranger's heart. The arrow sped through the air, but as if without a care, our nameless hero snatched the dart as it flew. Not only that, but he kept on singing too. Between his fingers the traveler twirled the arrow, then he stopped singing in order to address his foe. "I have heard on my travels several rumors that say there's no greater archer than Prince Ashok of Alapay. Judging from the way you handle your arrow and your bow, I'd say it is Prince Ashok who now tries to be my foe. Noble Prince of Alapay, one who is strong and true, thanks for lending me your dart. I now give it back to you." The nameless stranger then the arrow gently threw. Prince Ashok caught it by the shaft as it flew. Then the prince gave a laugh and cried out in mirth, "So easily have you figured out my birth. Forgive me for attacking you with such spite. Even in my distress, what I did was not right. I reckon from the way you managed to pluck an arrow, so swiftly sent singing through the air from my mighty bow, you must be a warrior mage of great renown, with a name famous in each and every town." "Actually, I know this may sound a little lame," said the hero, "but I do my best not to have a name. I have good reasons for being so mysterious. Regarding my name, please do not be too curious. But if you do not mind my own curiosity, tell me of why you are in such despondency, that you are such a terrible danger to every passing singing stranger." At this question a tear came to Ashok's eye. He said, "Let me tell you of how I must die. This fortress which here lies abandoned and empty and still is the gateway through which shall be wrought havoc and ill. Surely Trivandrum is marching to this place, knowing that there is no guard for them to face. Then from here, carried by the cries of their own elation, they will dismember and destroy and conquer my nation." Our nameless hero got off his horse and said, "Well then, as a matter of course, it's up to us to stop this army of Trivandrum. When they to our fortress here do marching come, cheer up, old prince, together we shall win this endeavor. Let your servant there take my steed." there is no horse that can match her speed. And let him race back to the capital, on the back of my wonderful animal. Once he is over there, he can firmly declare that in this dire emergency, troops should be sent with urgency. Then while we wait for reinforcements, we shall ourselves hold these battlements. Together we shall keep the enemy at bay, with the help of the mighty walls of Mandalay. Prince Ashok laughed and exclaimed, "You are quite mad. But death is sweeter when there is glory to be had, although there is certainly no hope. For 2 men against an army to cope, I'd rather die here than in the ruins of Alapay. I'll fight to my last breath defending Fortress Mandalay." Prince Ashok then instructed his servant Ranjit to take our hero's horse and to travel with it. The brave steed seemed sad, and sighed with a neigh, as if she didn't want to go away, but would rather stay by her heroic master's side. Nevertheless, she would obey, and to Alapay ride. She gave an arrogant and proud snort at Ranjit, as if ordering the servant upon her to sit. Ranjit mounted the amazing horse, and then like a thunderous force, the heroic mare took off at an incredible speed. It was more like a hurricane than the trot of a steed. Ranjit desperately held on, clinging for life. He thought of his children and of his beloved wife, and of how much he really did not want to die. So terrifying was the speed the horse did fly. Prince Ashok was utterly aghast. Never had he seen a horse so fast. For a while he was at a loss for speech, until our hero did the prince beseech, "I think it's time to get the fortress ready, so that our defense can be strong and steady." From this the prince did not shirk. They got right down to work. The arrows that were left behind were piled here and there so that the prince could reload his bow almost anywhere. They mended the fortress wall and fixed some barricades. As a challenge to any enemy cavalcades, they swapped encouraging words and also sharpened their swords, and discussed how to make their stand against Trivandrum's hordes. Since the fortress Mandalay stood twixt jungle and river, it made attack from the sides a difficult endeavor, so they decided to focus on defending the front, which was likely to take the enemy army's full brunt. Prince Ashok was to stand on top of the fortress wall, from where his arrows could rain from Mandalay's ramparts tall, while the nameless traveler would be down below. By the fortress gate, our hero would meet the foe. They finished working at nightfall. They then thought it best to take turns, one to keep guard, the other to rest. Meanwhile, the ending of a long tiring day brought rest to the army of Raja Sanvajay. The Raja had ordered his army to halt for the night. After a day's march, his soldiers found rest a delight. The royal scouts were the only exception. For them, the Raja had a special intention. He summoned their captain, who had a marvelous hat. It was big and gaudy, and had feathers lying flat. And when this man came into the royal tent, the Raja said, "Earlier my herald was sent." He bribed the soldiers of the fortress Mandalay to pack up all their things and to go away. "Now I order you scouts to ride through the night, to go occupy the fortress and make things right, so that tomorrow when this glorious army marches, the fortress will be ready with open gateway arches." With a flourish of his magnificent hat, the scout cried, "I shall obey your highness. This very moment we'll ride." And so the scouts were called up, each on a trusty horse sat. Then they rode out behind their leader, with the fancy hat. Meanwhile Shiranar called Raja Sanvajay to bed, and they enjoyed themselves as if they had been newly wed. Eventually the sun cast its morning ray, to announce the coming of a glorious day, with a hopeful clear blue sky. But for whom was the hope, by the by? Was it for the army of Raja Sanvajay? No. Look at those riding back up the pathway. It's the scouts who were sent forth to Mandalay. They all looked as if they'd something startling to say. And what was most shocking about their leader was that there was an arrow sticking through his magnificent hat. Prince Arand was beginning with morning inspection, but when he saw the scouts, he cried, "What is your intention? You were ordered to ride forth. Why do you now come back? Is that an arrow through your hat? Were you under attack?" The scout leader cried, "My glorious prince, to have failed my mission makes me wince. But when we wish the fort Mandalay to occupy, With two fearsome warriors we were forced to vie. One is the lord, of a mighty sword, the other with bow, confronts his foe, and these two gave us such an attack that we poor scouts were forced to turn back. This report quickly made its way to the ear of Raja Sanvajay. In his anger he called the scout captain a coward and demoted him. Then he ordered his army forward, proclaiming, "I will not let a mere two warriors form between me and my ambitions barriers." Quickly the army was roused. Every campfire was doused. The tents were hastily packed, and the mules with luggage stacked. Soon the army of Trivandrum was ready to march to the sounds of the drumbeat steady. So forward went the army on its way to a fateful encounter at Mandalay. In good order marched the army's ranks. Within hours they reached Gangan's banks, that wide and forbidding river that cut right through the jungle and splits the jungle into two. From within the jungle wild sounds came screeching, he wail of the chimp and the snipe's distant screaming, while the river's surface, which seemed so still, hid the fierce drowning depths ready to do ill. Between the jungle and river ran the road like a sliver. The road was well built and wide, the best way to safely stride, for one never knew if one would survive in the jungle. Marching through it, one could become meat for the grungle. Up ahead the road was suddenly short, for it stopped at the gate of a mighty fort. The order was sent for some infantry to march, for the glory of Trivandrum, through its gateway arch. As they approached, the fortress gate slowly became open, and through it stepped a man, with a sword as his weapon. Handsome was his face, but fierce was his eye. To fight him, one had to be ready to die. The soldiers stopped marching, unsure what to do. They gazed in surprise at this man in their view. The soldiers marching in the rear bumped the ones in the front. There was disarray. Everyone their places had to hunt. The army then stood still, watching our hero with care. None of them a fight with our great hero would dare. Never had they seen one with such confidence, one who seemed to treat fear with indifference. There was something about him, noble and great, that made them stop marching, to stand and wait. Suddenly, the hero took a bold step forward, with such a fierce look that the soldiers stepped backward, bumping all their comrades behind. So fearful were they of mind. Their commanding general rode up from the rear. "You fools! Why do you stop? Why do you tremble in fear?" His hair was wild, his manner was fierce. He waved his sword as if ready to pierce. His soldiers were almost as afraid of him as of our great hero standing tall and grim. With fright they told their general the news of what had come into their trembling views. "Cowards, fools! I will show you what you must do," roared the general, and as if that was the cue, forward through the ranks sped his horse. Straight for the hero was set his course. The horse galloped. The rider was full of bravado. Clearly he was ignorant to face such a foe. Our hero calmly unsheathed his sword and forward stepped. Then with supernatural force he gracefully leapt, soaring through the air, his blade flashing bright, soaring like an eagle, straight for the fight. The general swung his sword at this airborne attack, but his technique, unfortunately, skill did lack. The nameless hero easily dodged the swing, and our hero's sword through the air did sing, and cut right through the general's neck. The man's head flew, spurting blood like a beck. It flew right into the army's left flank, spreading terror down the army's rank. Meanwhile the masterless horse had veered to the right. The headless body rode on it still. What a sight! Past the army's right the horse then rode, and fright then the soldiers' faces showed. Now it was from the right flank. That fear spread down the army's rank. Very soon those soldiers would have all run away, if from behind the ranks a noble voice did not say, "Stand with me, men, and do not fear. Your prince now stands among you here." Noble and true was that voice. The soldiers obeyed out of choice, and their hearts and minds became resolved to stand alongside their admired prince, the Prince Arand. Prince Arand strode to the front. His bearing was regal, as if he were among swallows, and he was the eagle. His sword was by his side, and courage was in his eyes. He cried out, "Who is it that my army dare defies?" In answer an arrow flew from the sky. aimed for the prince's heart to make him die, but Aran drew his sword with incredible speed. Like lightning his blade answered its master's need, and the arrow was beaten aside. But suddenly a booming voice cried, "It is I who dare defy." The army looked up the fortress wall in shock, for they saw the fierce countenance of Prince Ashok. His face was like unto a tiger's, his teeth gnashed with hate, as he readied a new arrow to fly towards its fate. The first was barely out the bow when he shot another. 3 arrows he quickly shot, one straight after the other. Arand, as if without a care, leapt upwards into the air, and with his skilful sword shredded all the darts, so that they harmlessly fell to the ground in parts. Then, as he was a warrior of incredible skill, he was able to, by the force of his magical will, to fly up to the fortress wall's top, and after this magical hop, Prince Aran spoke thus to Prince Ashok, "Who is it that dares myself to mock? I am the Prince of Alipay, you truce-breaking wretch. Now stand still, for a new treaty on your face I would etch." These 2 great warriors then fought on that fortress wall. 20 fearsome rounds they fought, giving it their all. The soldiers of Trivandrum were inspired by the fight, and to the fortress they charged to prove Trivandrum's might. But the nameless traveler faced the armed charging horde, and with amazing martial skill fought them with his sword. So the battle raged, 2 warriors above while below, an army tried to match the nameless hero as a foe. After 5 more rounds, Ashok gave such an attack that Prince Aran ended up falling and stumbling back. Ashok saw an opening and launched an offense, against which Arand could not raise a defense. Ashok's blade into Aran's belly did scud, and when the blade withdrew, out flowed Prince Aran's blood. But Arand, though wounded, would not give in. He kept on fighting, vowing to win. Meanwhile, the nameless hero effortlessly pushed back the Trivandrum soldiers' sincere attempts to attack, for as many as they were, and try as they might, they could not defeat the traveler in their fight. The hero so easily defended the fortress gate that the soldiers' enthusiasm began to abate. Above, swords continued to flash, as the princes went on with their clash. For several rounds they were equally matched, and fierce blow after blow was hotly dispatched. But Prince Arand was desperately needing some care for his wound which was constantly bleeding. Eventually he lost so much of his blood that he swayed like a boat lost in a flood. Encouraged, Ashok became even more busy, throwing blow after blow till Aran's head was dizzy. Finally Aran dropped his sword and gave a hopeless yell. Backwards he swooned, and over the edge of the wall he fell. Some loyal soldiers below had been alarmed by the shout, and had seen how their noble prince had lost in the bout. Surely the fall would have to the prince his death had brought, but he was saved by his men. In their arms the prince they caught. Then with their prince the men quickly rushed away, and the army too retreated in disarray. By their foes they were so demoralized that they ran away so disorganized. The men took their prince to where doctors could attend to him. The doctors quickly stopped the bleeding from the wound so grim. The Raja Sanvajay came to see his son. For himself he saw what to his child had been done. The Raja then said, "Now do I know what is in store when one nation another engages in war. What good is it to conquer 3 nations like Alipay, if I have to lose my son somewhere along the way?" Trivandrum's Raja decided to take his son home, and not over foreign lands with an army to roam. Shirinar was angry, and pretended to cry. She said to the Raja, "Why did you have to lie? I thought you loved me, but now you want to turn and run, to leave your boasts unfulfilled and all our work undone. If you must return home to nurse your son, then go. But leave your army with me, that I may face the foe." And then the Raja, meaning to please her, made her his army's commander and leader. The next morning, he and some men escorted his son. Their roles in our battle were now finished and done. Meanwhile, Shirinar colored herself with paint, so that she looked like some dreaded war saint, and riding as leader of Trivandrum's military, Shirinar certainly did not look ordinary. She thought to herself, "This is the way it should be, with myself leading the army personally. Never mind the Raja Sanvajay, he is a fool. It is up to me to be the one who will truly rule." Armed with her magic staff, She led the army on its way, back to the gates of Alipay's fortress Mandalay. Yet again there stood the traveler, tall and fearless, our hero, strong and virtuous, noble and peerless. Meanwhile, Alipay's Prince Ashok was fast asleep, and the reason for his being in slumbers deep was that he the long midnight guard shift had undertaken. With so little sleep it was a struggle to awaken. Shirinar rode forth and cried, "You wretch of a wight! Let's see how good you really are in a fight." From her staff she launched a magical blast that flew towards the hero, blazing and fast. It struck our hero and engulfed him in a flame. Oh no, was that the end of the hero with no name? Of course not, for although Shirinar anticipated to see the hero dead when the blast dissipated, the nameless traveler emerged unscathed, though the ground around him with scorch marks was bathed. Aghast, Shirinar said, "This is no ordinary man. Against this foe, I'll need a different kind of plan." So Shirinar flew up into the air. From the sky an attack she wanted to dare. But the nameless traveler jumped up too, and swiftly right beside her he also flew. Horrified, Shirinar to hit him with her staff tried, which our hero with his sheathed sword batted aside. Thus an aerial fight began, which for 10 or so deadly rounds ran. Shirinar's staff gave off sparks as they exchanged blows, while the troops below watched in awe the battling foes. And although Shirinar's many blows were meant to kill, our hero laughed and kept his sword in its sheath still. As the clash continued on without pause or break, the noise they made finally shook Prince Ashok awake. When he saw the enchantress in the air, he took his bow, and then he loosed an arrow to fly swiftly at the foe. But Shirinar's magic senses the coming arrow felt. She twisted and fired a bolt that made the arrow melt. But she lost her concentration, and then she was falling, as her ability to multitask was appalling. It is rather hard, by the by, to fight, melt arrows, and fly. In an undignified manner, she fell to the ground. She landed, tumbled, but then stood up safe and sound. Meanwhile, our nameless hero of great renown also returned to land, floating gently down. "Wretch," Shirinar cried, "I'll make you rue this hour. Watch as I reveal the full extent of my power. Against you I shall summon a golem made of stone, a demon of the rocky earth called Bo-Dathon. As for your sneaky arrow-flinging friend, I've a plan to make him too meet his end. But first, let the earth beneath us groan. Let every stone and pebble moan in time with this spell that I intone. Rise, rise from your throne, O dread Bo-Dathon. Let mud be your flesh, let rock be your bone. Arise to my summons, demon of the stone." Then the ground began to rumble, as if the very earth did grumble. Rock and sand moved in a dusty whirlwind of cloud, and mud flew from the riverbank with splashing so loud. All these things coalesced into a miniature storm, which hardened and turned into a giant monstrous form, a great ogre made of rock, with eyes blazing like fire, ready to fulfill Shirinar's evil desire. But Shirinar was not finished with her magical plot. 2 dragons, one blue and cold, the other red and hot, were summoned from I know not where, materializing from thin air. The blue dragon flew over the river Gangan, and roared its frosty breath. It made quite a din. Even in that jungle the cold made one shiver, and soon into ice had turned that portion of river, while the waters of the Gangan were being made to freeze. The other dragon was flying over the jungle trees, and with a blast of flame turned into a cinder, a whole area of unlucky jungle timber. After having the area so ravished, the magical dragons then both vanished. After all this impressive magic, Shirinar felt exhausted and sick, and she almost fainted down, but instead she said with a frown, "Now witness what to you two I have meted. I shall now stand back and watch you be defeated. My army shall split in 2, each part shall attack a side, while from the front Bo-Dathon shall rip apart your hide." Trivandrum's army divided into twain, and marched forth to attack the fortress again. Over the river of ice part of the army marched, while on the other side it was through the burnt land so parched. Ashok saw that the fort was being attacked on each side. Do you think that he decided to run away and hide? Never! Ashok gritted his teeth and loaded his bow, and leapt from one side to the other, engaging the foe. As he flew through the air, he loosed arrow upon arrow. Into the lives of men it was death that the prince did sow. Meanwhile Shirinar ordered the stone demon to attack. Bo-Dathone lumbered forward to bring about this wrack. The demon wanted to crush the traveler with one blow, for its fist was huge enough to batter a lesser foe. Down came the stone demon's mighty giant arm, trying to inflict drastic physical harm. But our noble hero blocked the attack, with such a force that the ogre stumbled back. Enraged, the demon Bo-Dathone once again lunged, and so into a mighty fight were they plunged. And while our hero with the giant wrestled, Ashok with the army successfully battled. Shirinar had counted on some easy victories, but she had not considered heroes such as these. For 2 days and 2 nights she had to direct the attack, and not for one moment did our mighty heroes slack. She divided her troops into several groups, so that they could take it in turns to attack and to sleep, but Ashok tirelessly pushed them back from the keep. During all that time the nameless hero managed this feat. The demon Bo-Dathone could not our hero beat. But as the 3rd day of battle came, Ashok's arm felt increasingly lame, as a heavy exhaustion set in. Yet he vowed to either die or win. Meanwhile, the traveler's fight was almost done. Indeed, the hero should long ago have won if Shirinar had not constantly strengthened the demon magically. Though the demon's great fists were made of rock, the hero with his strong arms the blows did block, till the moment arose for a blow that would end this fight with his foe. Our nameless but wonderful hero called out a spell that made his fist glow as upon the demon it fell, and as if lightning had hit the ground, there was a blast of light and of sound. The stone demon let out a roar as the magic punch ripped through its core, and into pieces the monster tore. Then demon Bo-Dathone was no more. The army of Trivanram was by now scaling the wall, and Ashok was barely managing to make them stall. The prince felt all was lost, but to fight he'd still try, when suddenly Ashok was injured on his thigh. An enemy sword had made a lash, leaving a nasty bleeding gash. He fell into the courtyard where he could barely stand, but even so he kept fighting, with a sword in his hand. It looked like the prince was about to poorly fare, but our nameless hero leapt up into the air, flew over the wall and landed in the courtyard right beside the prince who was being pressed hard. Our marvelous hero then beat the soldiers back, and while doing this amazing counterattack, the traveler cried to Ashok, "Do not give up hope." And with that our traveler found some rope, and tied the wounded prince of Alipay to his back, and carried him as if he were a lightly loaded pack. The two so tied carried on the fight, the two against a whole army's might. But though they were surrounded, yet Trivanram was confounded, for they could not defeat the two, so great was their daring do. The Trivanram soldiers were at the end of their wits, when a voice was heard. It sounded much like Ranjit's. One could hear the servant calling clearly, "This way, this way!" And soon came galloping the cavalry of Alipay, the traveler's horse, with Ranjit clinging. Burst through, enemy soldiers flinging, followed close behind by soldiers, Alipay's best, the royal guard, ready to do their Raja's behest. These elite soldiers of the court completely surrounded the fort, trapping those soldiers who were inside, while the rest, as if swept by the tide, retreated from this onslaught of Alipay dash. Exhausted from battle, some broke and ran away. Those soldiers fighting our hero and Ashok were trapped. As the horsemen surrounded them, their will to fight was sapped. They surrendered, and so our two heroes were saved. After 3 days of battle, the heroes were not staved. Shirinar ordered her fleeing army with a shout, preventing their retreat from being an utter rout, when suddenly another army came from behind. Shirinar turned to look, and this is what she did find. The banners of Lord Falcon fluttering in the air, and Prince Aranete, boldly in the van he did fare, and the wise old Ezadane, wizard of the borderland, giving orders to this new army with waves of his hand. Faced with this new threat, Shirinar's army gave up the fight, and surrendered their weapons to Prince Aranete's might. Shirinar was upset, her mind was full of rage. Her face looked fierce, like a lioness in a cage. She then cried, Although now you force me to retreat, yet I will make all of you pay now for my defeat." And with the last of her magical will, she summoned a great flaming ball of ill, that suddenly did fly, downwards from the sky. "I don't care if you are from Trivandrum or Alipay," Shirinar cried. "You scum are all going to die today." Like a witch, she then flew into the air, and fled. Towards Trivandrum she did fare. The blazing ball she left behind crackled with sound, and then starting falling faster towards the ground. Even the most hardened soldiers started running away, as soon as they saw it was heading for Fort Mandalay. "What is that thing?" cried out Prince Aranete. "What dire fate are we all about to meet?" "It is going to explode," cried Ezadane as he rode. "It's going to destroy us all, if it's allowed further to fall." The wizard, his arms unfolding, attempted then a spell of holding, but all he could do was make the bomb fall slower. Despite all his will, it came closer and closer. So all the soldiers looked on in fear, sensing that annihilation was near. But there was a courageous one, who knew that his work was not yet done. Yes, you're right, it was our nameless hero. He had still some amazing feats to show. I am hoping that it is not too much to suppose that you remember of that river that Shirinar froze? Well, despite the jungle heat, the Gangan was frozen still. Our hero sauntered over and summoned up his will. Then with great magic strength he lifted the whole block of ice. Then he tossed that huge block as if it were a pair of dice. The frozen river flew straight into the core of the frightening blaze of that meteor, and everyone was staring to see what was in store, except for a few who were cowering on the floor. A sudden explosion, a sudden thunderclap. Where that fireball was now a misty gap, which coalesced into a brooding cloud, which quickly the sky did overshroud. Then gentle flakes of white softly through the air did flow, and so for the first time the jungle had some snow. It was cold, it was chilly, but everyone cheered, for a horrid disaster from its course had been steered. Aranete was eager for our hero to meet. He rode through the ranks on his trusty horse so fleet. To show that he did not come looking for a fight, he rode under a banner of purest white. The hero was helping Ashok his wound to attend. With an improvised bandage the wound he did mend. Aranete came and said, "Let me now forget my station, and here bow down before you in high admiration. When Lord Falcon heard of the invasion of Alipay, he quickly sent me with his bold army down this way. He made the decision fast, he was not at all perplexed, for he knew that after this war, the borderlands were next. But I never thought I would see two heroes fighting an army, holding Shirinar's evil plans at bay, and thus, for all of us, saving the day." Then up from the rear, royalty came near. The very Raja Krishnud came forth and said, "My son, forgive me, how I feared you would be dead. My lord and father, why do you lament? The gods victory unto us have sent. My Raja, listen, I would have you know that this man beside me is a true hero. He came here when the hope was dark and dim. The fate of our nation looked quite grim, but his mighty hand has saved our land. My high admiration I will not hide. It was an honor to fight by his side. I saw him alone face the mighty well-armed horde, that made up the army of that foreign lord, that villain king who found it so easy to betray us. But he did not reckon to meeting this hero thus. My Raja, my lord, my father, treat this man as my brother, though I know not his name, for he wishes no fame. My father, though you are a king, give the respect that's due, for this is a man like no other, a hero like few." The Raja ordered his son to be taken straight away, to the best doctors to be found back in Alipay. Then to the hero spoke, "Your actions most exemplary shall most certainly become quite legendary. I am the Raja Krishnud. Tell me your name, then I may myself proclaim to the world your fame." The hero answered, "I mean no disgrace to your throne, but I must keep my name secret for reasons of my own." This answer angered the Raja Krishnud, who was always so volatile of mood. The Raja cried, "Such insolence! Such impertinence! And he carries such a smug smile on his countenance. Guards, arrest this man, Arrest this arrogant whelp. Put him in my dungeon far away from help. The traveller's horse was angry and was ready to fight, but our nameless hero laughed and calmed down his steed's might. He allowed his horse and himself to be taken away, as captives to be kept in the dungeons of Alipay, although Aranete cried out, and the soldiers gave a shout. All sorts of protestations would not change the Raja's mind. He turned with a huff and left those protests all behind. But now, before we get carried along too far, let us find out what happened to Shirinar. As well let us see how fares Dundee, and I think you would like to also have in your ken the fate of Sanvajay's daughter, poor Princess Eren. Shrieking through the night air, with fierce eyes and tousled hair, Shirinar flew until she had finally come to the royal grand palace at Trivanrum. Straight away she ran to fetch the Book of Eibon, and she turned to the page where it was scrawled upon how to summon the demon by paying a price. Life for a life. Eibon demands human sacrifice. Then she raced to the room where Dundee was supposed to keep the Princess Aren in a state of drugged, stuporous sleep. But when she rushed into Aren's room, she was not there. In her bed was nothing but the emptiness of air. Shirinar then cried out in her despair, "What is this? Why now in my darkest hour do my plans go amiss? I have worked too hard and too long, and too much have gained, for me now to relinquish all that I have attained. I will triumph, I will not lose, I will not fly. Even if it means a demon I must summon try. And now, on the cusp of my ultimate power, why could not a princess stay in her bower?" "Forgive me, master." From out the shadows came a voice, "But you saddled me with a far too terrible choice. I know that you, my teacher, will think me not very strong, but I just cannot force myself to do something wrong. It did not seem right for drugs against Princess Eren to wield. Should we not meet our foes on an even battlefield? I should have known, you silly soft-hearted fool, that you would never bend fully under my rule. You have so much potential. You are so keen to learn. You worked so diligently for my respect to earn. One day you shall be more powerful than me. You're a fierce vampiric warrior mage to be. What would you have me do, Dundee? Would you have us turn tail and flee? And where would we run to? Where would be our exile stern? Where shall be our place? Where shall we plot our return? It's easy for you, for ahead of you is so much time. But in terms of power, I am edging past my prime. After living in such luxuriousness, do you expect me to live in the wilderness? Do you expect me to return in shame to Orenai? To once more ingratiate myself to Mordecai? To once more have to believe his idealistic plan and his ridiculous dreams of a brotherhood of man? Never, Dundee. I have fallen in love with my life. I'm not about to let go of my dreams without a strife. And then, like an eagle swooping into a fox's den, from behind a hidden place came the Princess Eren. She said, at Dundee's pleading, "Though you are a foe, I was going to give you a chance to leave and go. But clearly you are not willing to listen to reason, and thus I must destroy you for all of your treason. Treacherous Dundee, what have you done to me? You knew that I to a furious battle went, and now I have returned all weary and spent. Aren. I suppose that you now think that you have won? Watch then, I shall sacrifice myself to demon Eibon." And then Shirinar, with a wild-eyed look, opened up the pages of the dreaded book, and then began some terrible words to intone, in a voice that quickly changed to a horrid moan. Dundee and Aren rushed forth to snatch the book away, but a demonic aura had come into play. Shirinar was surrounded by a magical field, which acted as a dark, impenetrable shield. Dundee and Aren could only stand and watch helplessly, as demonic power consumed the witch relentlessly. The Book of Eibon crumbled and vanished into the air, and from the sky came a howl mixed with terror and despair. Shirinar's body writhed, twisted, and contorted. Her features became demonically distorted, and she cried, "Dundee, save me! Eibon, it is eating me!" Dundee, against that demonic shield, threw blow after blow, but it was no use, and he could not save her from her woe. Shirinar gave out a last blood-curdling tormented scream, then her body transformed as in a nightmarish dream. Like the fall of a cocoon, The aura disappeared. What were Shirinar's eyes now at Dundee, and Arryn leered? 2 hideous wings unfurled, dripping and bloody, and 6 new arms had sprouted from its body. What was now Eibon had skin covered with scales. Iban's stomach tore open, dropping entrails. "Dundee!" cried Arryn. "Your foolish teacher is dead. What's left of her body is now a demon instead. But Eibon is still disorientated and weak. We must destroy the demon while he is still meek. Dundee, before this becomes our darkest hour, lend to me now some of your fighting power." While Iban lurched and stumbled floppily, Dundee channeled his magical energy by putting his hand on Princess Arryn's back, while she powered up for a mighty attack. About Arryn the air colored with blue wisps of wind, she cried, "Har Har Mahadev Sat Shri Akka Jai Hind!" And upon her own and Dundee's magic force drawing, upon those words she sent a stream of power flowing. It flew across the room, strong and fast, and hit Iban with a bellowing blast. Arryn, who had put all her will into the spell, had much exhausted herself, and to her knees she fell. But she raised her head, expecting to see victory, hoping to see Eibon's corpse lying lifelessly. But though Iban was down, yet he still moved. Just strong enough to survive, the demon proved. The demon Iban was badly hurt and confused. Around himself he a cloud of acid suffused. The demon hoped that this would be enough of a defense, till he could heal his body and return his mind to sense. But to a vampire, a little acidified air is not enough to induce a worry or a care. Dundee rushed forward into the cloud, jumping right in. The acid singed his clothes and, sizzling, burnt his skin. He did not let out even a slight little groan, though the acid at places burnt right to the bone. Dundee reached into Eibon's belly, where 'twas torn apart, and thrust his hand into Eibon's chest, gripping his heart. Then Dundee, with a defiant shout, ripped the vile demon's organ out. Eibon screamed, the demonic presence faded, the demon's spirit back into limbo waded. As the demon back home began to wind, Shirinar's naked body it left behind, and the black heart in Dundee's hand broke to dust, dissolving away like a broken bond of trust. Dundee bent by Shirinar's body, lifeless on the ground. It was as if nothing had happened. There was no sound. The starry night was suddenly still and calm, as if the world had not come near any harm. Shirinar's corpse was then picked up by Dundee Laster. He turned and said, "Goodbye. I go to bury my master." Before Arryn could reply, Dundee had taken flight. Using his magic will, he flew till he was out of sight. So much for the witch Shirinar. Her plans didn't take her very far. Let's return now to our nameless hero. I'm sure of his fate you are eager to know. Ashok took it as an act of derision when he found his comrade was placed in prison. He ignored his doctors and hobbled out of bed. He went straight to his father, and this is what he said. "You have thrown the very man who saved the nation, the man who allowed you to keep your royal station, into a prison, as if in derision, when there was help from no other. This man stood by me as a brother. In what way can you call this fair? If you still wish me for an heir, then release him, or upon this honor mine, I shall declare that I am no son of thine." Raja Krishnud pondered upon the error of his way, and admitted wronging the savior of Alapay. But before he could order the release of the hero, in rushed a guard who cried, "My Raja, you should know that the captive has escaped from the dungeon keep, after somehow putting all our guards to sleep with some sort of magical song." Then, to add insult to the wrong, he broke into the stables and took his horse. "Give the order that we may chase him on his course." The Raja answered, "No, captain, you may let him go. After all, we had no right to treat him as our foe." Prince Ashok ran to the palace's highest tower, so that he could with his eyes the city streets scour. And there, amidst the alleys, he saw a man dressed in black, riding a brave steed, sword by his side, ready for attack. And Ashok cried, "Hero, I never got the chance to say, thank you for all you have done at that fight at Mandalay. I hope you know that wherever leads your winding way, that you have a brother in me back in Alapay." And it seemed to Ashok that the hero heard that, for in the distance our hero waved his hat. Then the Nameless One, with a bearing noble and proud, disappeared into the midst of a thronging crowd. This then was the tale of how our hero saved the day, by facing down an army at that fort of Mandalay. A feat that could have been done by no one other, except for our brave nameless traveler. End of Part 2. Ballad of the Nameless Traveler, by Tomek Pierkowski, a fantasy epic in rhyme. Text copyright Tomek Pierkowski, 2012.